welcome Ellen to the podcast. Thank you so much for being a guest. So I always kick off by asking my guests, are you well actually?
Yes, thank you for having me on here.
Great
And
to
well, actually, I am well, actually. I recently, I would say I feel the most well that I've felt in a very long time, which
Amazing.
is exciting to say. I guess, and my feelings around like what well is have really changed. So yeah,
Mm,
like now I would say like I'm feeling really healthy and happy. I'm feeling at peace and really safe within my body, which is a huge part of wellness for me.
mm,
Um, Feeling nourished and connected, like relationships are good. And I'm really doing things that mean something to me that I'm passionate about and that I love. So yeah, like physically, mentally, spiritually, I'm feeling really great. And I would say, yeah, so that I am feeling well. And that's not to say that every now and again I'm like, oh gosh, and there aren't some things that come up and some challenges that I have.
mm.
Uh, we're always evolving and changing and growing, and that can feel stretchy, which is also great. So yeah, right now I'm really grateful to be where I am and living the life that I am.
That's so great. You talked there about feeling safe in your body, which I love. Can you tell me a little bit more about that feeling?
So I guess in the past, wellness, like for me, used to be a lot more about physical appearance. And, like if I was doing well, then it kind of meant I was eating healthy foods and physically I was like fit and not unwell, not sick kind of thing.
Mm,
Whereas now, like so much of wellness, yes, is about just really feeling at home with my body, feeling connected to it, listening to it, trusting it, giving it what it needs without worrying about how others might perceive that, I guess, and worrying about having to constantly change my body. And yeah, like in the past, when I used to think that well was a certain look,
mm,
now for me, well is, I guess, a being, and that being is being myself and doing what I need to
mm.
feel great in my body.
And what do you think changed that for you?
Oh, a whole lot.
Big question.
So I guess for, yeah, like, a little bit of my back history for around, I don't know, at least a decade of my life, I had really disordered eating and I really struggled with my body image. And I guess it got to a point where I knew something had to change, and I wasn't, like, people would look at me and say, oh, you're so healthy and you're so well. And though I knew I was far from that. And just because I may have looked the part, internally I had so many struggles. And also, like, physically, although the physical look was there, like I hadn't had a period. I would get a period once a year. That would
Wow.
be maybe just for a day, and then it would basically be non-existent again. um like, like my hair wasn't growing very well. There was lots of other like physical symptoms that really, like, I knew I wasn't healthy and well. So also mentally, I was constantly consumed with thoughts of food and
Yes.
my body, and punishing myself if I were to eat food that I deemed to be bad or unhealthy. And so, yeah, there were like lots of things that went on for far too long, to the point where, yeah, when I was first kind of really solidly dating my now husband,
Mm.
it really started to affect our relationship in a few different ways. Like he could never cook for me because I'd be hovering over him. I was terrified if he would use butter in the pan or oil with the thing, and even like surprise dates to places, I'd need to know what was on the menu, and if there was something healthy enough for me to eat on there. There were lots of like little ways, and even like, bless him, he is such an intuitive eater, and he has like such a sweet tooth too. And like him of a nighttime relaxing would, often get a cookie or chocolate, and like me inside would just be boiling up, so mad, and like, how could he be eating that in front of me? And though it had nothing to do with him and it was all about me. And so, yeah, like lots of these things, I guess I knew were a big like indication that things needed to change for me.
Yeah.
Then obviously not having a regular period, when we wanted to have children, it just became almost impossible. We tried lots of different things. And yeah, then I really knew that I had to. I mean, I was diagnosed with PCOS eventually. Like, I saw many different specialists, and really, it was kind of a blanket, I don't know what's wrong with you. And I did have a lot of the symptoms of PCOS, though if you put me in a lineup, they said, like I didn't have excessive hair growth, I wasn't overweight, I was quite underweight. And these were things that, and then so for me, really at the point where I knew so much of it was because of my relationship with food and my body. And I knew it was all of like that mental restriction and all of the worry and the overthinking and the fact that I was, underweight. I was over exercising like crazy. I would exercise 7 days a week easily for a couple of hours, sometimes every day.
Wow.
So like it was these things that I knew, okay, maybe I may have some PCOS, and though this is a major factor for me. So it was really for me then saying, okay, if kids are something that I want, then this is something that I need to do. And I knew I couldn't live my life like this any longer. Like I was like, I'm done with this. I can't. It's like actually exhausting and all consuming. So yeah, like I guess that was my kind of turning point there. And from there, it's only really continued. My daughter, who I had eventually by natural contraception, after being told we actually wouldn't be able to have kids and we'd have to do IVF, she is now almost 6 years old. So it's been that long of a journey, really. And even in amongst kids, I've still had like that in and out of what am I doing here? And can I do this? And I still need to do this. And then like also having kids then was massive for me, because I knew that I wanted to be the one to really end that generational like continuation, yes, of all of those like food and body types of things. So now it's become, yeah, like even more important to me to continue on my healing journey, because I know that I get to be a positive role model for my daughter and my son. And it's beautiful. Like we have the most beautiful conversations now. My daughter actually asked me like a week or so ago, I was getting changed, and they're always around because that's what they do. They follow me to the toilet, to the shower, wherever I am. They're never far behind. And yeah, as I was changing, Alice said to me, Mom, like, what are those bumps on your bottom and on your leg? And she noticed a bit of my cellulite, and I was like, that's cellulite. And I was like, lots of people have it and some people don't.
Mm.
And it's like, it's how our bodies store fat, and, fat helps to keep us warm, and it keeps our body safe and keeps our body,
Mm.
regulating. And yeah, and like, it's kind of having those conversations at her level and letting her know that, yeah, some people have it, some people don't, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, we're told that, cellulite is so bad and there's all these creams, and right now, when we can have these conversations without her being exposed to all of that stuff,
Mm.
yeah, it's really important to me. And she was like, will I get it later? Like, do I have some? And she was kind of checking. And even my son was like having a look, and bless him, he's like 3 years old. And I was like, no, like, I don't see any. And though, like, maybe later in life you will, and maybe you won't. And
Right.
either way, that's okay. And no matter what, I'm still going to love you, and you get to love
Mm.
your body too. I was like, your body's amazing, and it's okay if you have some. It doesn't mean anything.
Mm.
So yeah, like, it's these moments now that, in my unhealed state, like, I probably would have been mortified for the fact that she
Mm.
asked me, what's that cellulite? And I just would have been like so embarrassed. And, I probably wouldn't have been able to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
incredible. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, that's lovely to hear because I found out just a few weeks ago I'm having a girl. So I
yes, did
feel,
you?
yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited for you.
So I'm very aware of how, like what you said, that generational thing. And I don't blame
Yeah.
anyone before me for having these
No.
attacks. They're so ingrained and I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm, as like you, I feel really strongly. So, and I'm sure a lot of people listening as well will feel the same because we're all trying to
Yeah.
break that cycle. So that little
Yeah.
example you just shared with your daughter is really lovely. And I think one thing you were talking about there, because I think we on the course we studied together, there was a lot of talk about kind of maybe, if I remember correctly, like body neutrality or neutral.
Yeah.
So saying cellulite's just how fat stores, some people have,
Yeah.
some people don't. That neutral, it's not good or bad, it just is so
Yeah.
important to be able to give them at such a young age. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you. Like you said, I don't like this generational stuff. All of our parents have been doing the best that they could with the resources that they had. And
Mm.
like, back in that day, they grew up with really like the beginnings of diet culture, and then they've lived through it, evolving and
Mhm.
evolving and evolving. And so, yeah, I don't definitely hold that against anyone. And I'm so compassionate for like that,
Yeah.
most definitely. And I know even now, like, there's part of me that kind of freaks out that, am I doing enough for my daughter and my kids? And I sometimes I feel that there is that pressure now to be like, oh my gosh. And though I know I'm not perfect, and again, all I can do is the best that I know. So
Yes.
if I can feel like I can have these conversations, then yeah, that's great.
That's really, I mean, that's, as I say, that'll be great advice. I think those two things, just talking neutrally about body stuff to your kids, especially if people listening have
Yeah.
kids and are worried about how they might pass, even unconsciously pass that thing down. But as you say, it's come from a place of you being healed. So that healing is so key, and then being able to kind of have that
Yeah.
sort of, why do you think, this is like just a general question, why, I mean, why do you think we as, I mean, look, men are affected by this as well, no doubt, but why is
Yeah.
it, why do we as women equate, because I picked up it because you like to work out, you like to be fit, I'm the same. Why do we equate thinness and fitness so much with success, do you think?
Well, because it's what we're taught.
Yeah,
We are
that's true.
so conditioned. Like, that is diet culture. Like, diet culture
Yeah.
tells us that in order to be successful or worthy, loved, happy, you have to be thin, right?
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, this is a message that we are bombarded with, basically every day of our lives.
Mm.
So, until we really get to dive deep into that and really just start like looking at what health and wellness means to us, then yeah, quite often we get stuck in this cycle of chasing this
Mm,
in ideal in the pursuit of, oh, like once I weigh this many kilograms or once I look like this, then I'll finally feel good about myself and I'll finally, feel successful or feel happy. And though I know for me personally, like when I got to that weight, it still wasn't good enough. And I
right.
chose to then keep losing more weight. And then, there was never really that time where I was like, yep, I feel really great about myself. And I
Mm,
even noticed that now, like it's funny because sometimes like recently um I was doing something for some content I was creating, and I was looking for old images of myself when I was like my thinnest.
mm,
And I actually don't have very many, which
mm,
was so interesting to me. And it just shows that like even at my thinnest, I still didn't really like want to take a lot of photos of myself or my body because I was still so self-conscious of how I looked.
mm-hmm.
Even though people were praising me and, telling me how great I looked, I didn't ever feel still that worthy or good enough.
Mm. Yeah,
So
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, it's such a myth that we're going to sort of feel a certain way once the scale says a certain
Mhm.
number. At what point did you, because you said, it's a process of healing. When did you, because I know you're a health coach and you
Yeah.
specialize in exactly the things that you've worked through. At what point did you kind of decide to take that step thinking like, okay, I want to really help other people with this?
So I was a teacher. I have been a teacher for 10 years, primary school, and generally working with special needs children, which I loved.
Mm,
And though when I had kids, my, like priorities changed and things changed in our life. And I also had a lot of difficulties at one point with my son. It was a kind of a random, unlucky thing. He had to have surgery. He got
mm.
inguinal hernias.
Oh,
So yeah, and he wasn't even 2 years old. So
oh.
it was very out of the blue, really random. And though, cut a long story short, he had one emergency surgery, and then they failed to acknowledge the second surgery they failed to acknowledge the second hernia.
Oh,
So when I said to them, I'm pretty sure there's two, they were like, oh, well, we're not going to look for anything that, isn't there. And I was like, okay. And so they did the surgery. And then when we came out of the surgery after a whole lot of rigmarole, then I looked and the other one was popping out again, though
oh
because it
no.
wasn't stuck like the first one, it wasn't classed as emergency, so he had to go on a wait list. And then of
Mm,
course, like it was a time where everyone was getting sick. It was kind of during winter. I was trying to go to work,
mm,
um, and every time I went to work, then he would go to daycare and pick up something new again because it was his
mm.
first year of daycare. Work was quite full on for me, and I really just burnt out.
Yeah,
And so there, I was also dealing with everything kind of going on in my head. I had a lot of health problems myself. And then I was like, you know what? I need to start looking after myself and stop putting everyone else first because I'm really going to go downhill. My body broke out in a full body psoriasis rash. I had
mm,
strep throat. Like, as we know, the body keeps the score
absolutely.
and it tells you, and you need to listen. And so that was when, yes, I took some time off. And then I ended up saying, okay, like, I love working with kids. And though, what else am I so passionate about? And I've always had a passion for health and nutrition.
Mm, mm,
And though I guess I used it for evil in the past, And I mean that in like, with disordered eating, I knew like so much about nutrition and calories and like all sorts of things.
Mm,
And though it wasn't really using my powers for good.
yeah.
So yes, I decided to do the health and nutrition coaching course. And that was really, the beginning of it. And I did like another course called neuro linguistic programming.
Oh, yeah.
I did a master's in that, which is so powerful, a lot about mindset. And really that helped me really move forward with my body image and my self-worth as well,
Mm,
because you really dive deep into who you are there.
absolutely.
And then, since then I've always kind of, during recovery, I really, like, one thing is, if you don't know, if you can't afford to like see someone to help you out, or you're not sure, kind of what you're looking for, there are so many resources out there to really start you on your journey. So I would say for like many years now, I've been, listening to podcasts
Yeah.
and reading lots of books and following along with lots of anti-diet dietitians and
Mm,
body positive or body neutral accounts. All of these things have really kind of inspired me, and I've learned so much along the way, along with doing the study. And then I really just knew, once I was recovered, I was like, this is a gift. Like, I have a whole new life.
mm,
And I just, I knew that in the time where I struggled so badly, I felt so alone and so isolated. I felt like I was the only one who ever, experienced these things. I'd look around at my friends, and people are eating normally, and I was like, man, how is everyone doing this? Like,
yeah.
I must be the only one who ever has all these like all-consuming thoughts. And I thought I was kind of going crazy with it. And so, it really became apparent to me now that, like, that is my full purpose that I'm here for. I
Mm,
get to now share my journey and my experience and all of the learnings, and like, in hope of allowing those people to do the same. And and really supporting, empowering those women that are feeling those things, to know that they are not alone, and that,
yeah.
and so these are, I guess, then that's why these women's events that I'm doing, it's really about like creating community. And again, like, knowing that you're not alone in this, and being able to share these things.
Mm,
And there's, so much power in that.
yeah.
And and now I just get so, yes, you can see, like, I just get so
Yeah.
passionate about doing this work. And I just know how very important it is, and how
Absolutely.
much my life has been transformed. And now I know that others can do the same. So it's really exciting.
That's so lovely. And I think, I don't know if you would agree with this. I sometimes, in the past, I've even felt like, when you are just a bit hung up on food, and I say just, when you are very hung up on food
Yeah.
or hung up on exercise, I've often felt in the past, just myself, a bit like shying away from talking about it, or embarrassed to say it was a thing when I see someone with, say, a really severe eating disorder, or someone with a really
Yeah.
severe drug addiction. I'm like, oh, am
Yes.
I just being silly? But
Yeah.
and I wonder if a lot of people feel like that, because it seems, because also, as we were saying, it's so normalized by the diet
Yeah.
culture. But it's very, as you say, it's very crippling. Like, it really consumes you, and it stops you from using so much valuable brain space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that read, like, if you've ever found that, when you felt like, I sometimes have felt like a bit, yeah, I don't know if embarrassed the right word, but a bit reluctant to sort of
Yeah.
speak about it. And then I wonder how many other people feel like that as well.
Yeah. No, I 100% resonate with that. That was exactly me. Like, because, and that, I guess, was a big part of why in the beginning I kind of just kept it to myself for a long time, and I never actually sought help, which is, I see now as like I was just prolonging. And if I had have sought help in the first place and really shared everything that was going on,
Mm.
I wouldn't have lived so long with all of this. But that was exactly it. I mean, eating disorders, and like, they don't have a look. Again, like,
Yeah.
health doesn't have a look, they don't have a look. And so when I saw myself, I thought, okay, well, I'm not really like, at one point I got quite thin for my height and my body
Mm.
size. And my mom did actually send me to see a nutritionist, which
Mm.
wasn't helpful, actually, because she was just a nutritionist, right, who told me to eat more, which was helpful because, of course, I knew I needed to eat more, but was I
Yeah.
going to? No, I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
still
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
That's it's
limited amount of food that I was.
complex. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I I knew that definitely, like, I needed help. And though, yes, there were times where I thought, okay, well, I'm not skinny enough or sick enough to
Mm.
really qualify for anything. So maybe I don't have this, or maybe yeah, like, I don't quite fit the mold. Maybe it's more just in my head. Maybe I'm kind of making this up. Maybe I'm making a bit of a bigger deal than what it actually is. So
Mm.
yeah, I really like questioned my my worthiness of actually getting help, which
Mm.
is crazy because we all deserve that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you, since you've been on this kind of healing path with your body, with food, do you have any kind of daily or maybe just weekly non-negotiables, things you do that keep you in that help you to stay in a mindset where, you know, you're not going to kind of, because as you said, even if you're doing much better, there's always going to be those little old things that crop up. How do
Yeah, of
you, what do you
course.
have any practices you can share? Just simple things.
Oh, so I guess a huge one for me is mindset.
Yeah.
And really also self-compassion. So it's constantly coming back to being compassionate with yourself, acknowledging that, like, this healing journey is never going to be linear. There's always going to be ups and downs. And yeah, really just meeting myself with compassion and kindness in those times.
Mm.
And uh I guess mindset is constantly, like, I don't even notice so much now that I do it all the time, though. It's like just reframing. Like, there'll be times where, you wake up in the morning and you feel great. And then you might spot yourself in the mirror, and then you're like, uh-oh, here we go. And you have a little bit of a, like, oh dear. And though, like, it's those times where you'll say, okay, like, it's great. I don't have to love my body every day.
Hmm.
And though I'm so grateful for my body and what it allows me to do, and like, it's allowed me to have two children, and it's constantly reframing those thoughts and bringing myself back to, okay, that's a thought and it is just a thought, and I don't need to listen to that. I
Mm.
get to choose what thoughts I want to create, and really reframing those. So those are, yeah, big, massive things for me. Movement now is still just, it's always been there.
Mm.
And though, like I mentioned previously, it was always a means to change my body, to shrink my body, to punish myself, to earn or burn food. And
Absolutely.
though movement now is so important for me still, most certainly for my mental health,
Yeah.
it just, I just need it. And sometimes if I'm just like in a bit of a, like, a jittery mood, even my husband's like, do you want to just like go for a walk or something? Like,
Mm.
do you need to do something? And I'm like, yeah. And sometimes I do. And um the beauty of movement now for me is that I've been really just playing around with all sorts of movement, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to take place in a gym or a specific location. It gets to look and feel for me however I want it to feel and
Mm.
however I want it to look. And one little thing that I've been doing recently, and it's getting colder now, so I have to, like, watch myself, is I've been doing sunrise walks or runs,
Beautiful.
and I just like love being outside, like the
Mm.
fresh air, the birds, and even sometimes when I can't hear the birds because I've got my blaring music on, um, it's just like, yeah, being outdoors. And then when the sunrise comes up every day,
Mm.
it's like this, yeah, it's a sign of this is a new beginning. I'm blessed to be here again. This is my life.
Mm.
And I've been jumping in the ocean. And in the summer, it was much nicer and kinder.
Is that, do you, what ocean do you, is it the Pacific or the Indian,
um,
Pacific Ocean?
yeah, I
It's a
think we're
it's a warm one, right? It's not.
yeah, it's pretty warm. It's pretty warm. You've tested me there with my geography skills, and as a teacher, I
I
should
wasn't
know
sure. I
that
was like Pacific, Indian.
I'm so bad at geography. Actually, I'll put that out there to the world, and that's okay. Um, so yeah, like it's not too like at the moment, it's probably still been sitting like 20 degrees, which
Hmm.
is not like too bad.
Yeah.
Um, though it's yeah, it's definitely starting to get cooler though. It's just like most of the time because I've been like running, I don't have my swimmers, and sometimes I've had them in the car, but I'm just like, who cares? So I'll just go, like I just take my shirt off and I'll just go in my sports shirt and my shorts or whatever.
Love that.
And it's just like there's just something so freeing about it. And you just feel so peaceful
Mm,
in the moment and in your body and just yeah, just being. That's it,
I love
really.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, like movement and like that was another one in amongst there is just nature. Like
Mm-hmm.
just really getting outside. I love sunshine and yeah, and I love just being outdoors. It's
Yeah,
yeah, like really good for the soul, really
absolutely.
grounding. Um, and what else? Also, like a big thing for me is now, which isn't very wellnessy for some people. And this is where, like, yes, like we've
Hey,
kind
it
of
gets
spoken,
to look and feel
health
how
and
you
wellness.
want.
Yes, exactly. And so for me, like, it sometimes looks like eating pizza now with my family.
Yeah.
Like, we have a pizza oven actually. And
Wow.
so we love making homemade pizzas. They're so great. And yeah, I just like, I had this moment the other week where it was a Friday night. So everyone was, feeling high because there was going into the weekend.
Mm.
And we made pizzas, we watched a movie together, and we sat on the couch and we all just ate pizzas. And it's those moments where like I'm like, yes, I am alive, and this was all worth
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
because I I know past me, and I like, well, actually, this bring up a bit of emotion for me, but
Yeah.
yeah, like past me, I couldn't have sat there with my kids and my husband and like fully been present in that moment
Yes.
and
Yeah.
just like eaten the damn pizza, like, and enjoyed it and yeah, like really experienced it. And then sometimes it's those like little moments that now mean so much to me that I get to do those things. And yeah, like sometimes now I eat the pizza and then later I'll be like, I ate pizza and I didn't even think about it. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, I'm not even thinking about the fact that like I need to go to the gym tomorrow or like
Mm.
anything. Like I think zero about it. And so yeah, it's like these little moments too. It's focusing on really being present
Mm.
with everything that you are doing and yeah, again, really just like
Yeah.
getting out of your head and feeling all the things.
And that's what that diet cult, that kind of that food obsession, that exercise obsession takes away. It robs you of your presence,
Yeah.
amongst other
Yeah.
things, but it takes you out. It means you can't enjoy a meal with your family because you're thinking about calories or how am I
Yeah.
going to burn this off? And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, gosh. I mean, if anyone, for anyone who's listening who doesn't struggle with this kind of stuff, I mean, well done. But it is also, it is and but many people do. I think it is that simple thing of, aside from all the other stuff, it's just that, as you like, eating with your family, eating with loved ones, it should be a joyful experience.
Yeah.
Just being able to, that is the best gift of
Yeah.
recovery, of healing, I guess.
Because like diet culture tells us that food is fuel and food is calories. And,
Mm.
like it doesn't tell us that food gets to be pleasure and it gets to be memories and it gets to be tradition and culture and like connection, all of these other like special
Mm,
things that
mm,
food is to us that, yeah, again, like you said, we're robbed of, and it's taken away from us because food has to be this thing to help us look this certain way and be a certain way, instead of,
mm.
yeah, to really like nourish ourselves holistically all
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
You said a little earlier in the conversation about values, and is that something you do when you work with clients? Do you get them to state that? Because obviously, as you just
Yeah.
said, food has many, many values, but do you get people to kind of like list their values in life? So, like,
Yeah.
for example, family or
Yes.
trash or just whatever it might be, and then
Yes.
be able to build a picture around that. Is that something you do?
Yes, most certainly. And I was actually having this conversation with a woman the other day who, like, she was saying she was really struggling with accepting body changes. And like, she's also seeing a therapist
Mm,
who has asked her to, yeah, eat more carbs. And so we were having this conversation about like, and I said, it's really important. Like, one thing that really helped me, and yes, I do share with others, is like to get so clear on your why.
yeah.
So really, like, what is your why? And like I shared before, my big why for me was like really like family, like if I
Mm,
wanted to have kids. And it was also just like I wanted that my freedom back, and I
mm,
wanted to live my life. And yeah, and then that really, like you just said, ties in with getting clear on what you value. And yes, like example for me, my values were family and having disordered eating and being obsessed with food
mm,
meant that, yes, I couldn't have these dinners with family and friends and loved ones without like so much stress, so much worry, always like planning things, or um like going to places and just not eating things as well because
mm,
I
mhm.
didn't feel like that I'd exercised enough or that fit in with my diet at the time or whatever it was. And also like family being a value, with disordered eating and eating disorders, it takes away your presence as well, like your presence with family. um so much of my time was taken like where people would be like doing events, or and I would say, oh, I've got to go to the gym even, or like do activities and things like that.
Yeah.
um Another, yeah, value for me was freedom,
Yes.
and being constantly consumed by thoughts of food and your body, you have zero freedom. And so, yeah, like you mentioned, definitely like values are a huge part of helping you to remain focused on, okay, what do I truly value? And is having this obsession with food and my body helping me to stay aligned with those values and with the life that I truly want to live?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I knew for me the answer was 100% no.
That's so,
And though now, yeah, what I value is a huge part of everything. So it's
oh,
great.
that's so lovely. Oh,
Mm.
thank you, Ellen. Thanks for sharing all of that. It's so amazing. You share some really, really great stuff on your Instagram page, which I'll link in the show
Yeah.
notes. If someone were having a wobble, let's say, or maybe they've eaten something and they feel like, oh, I want to beat myself up about this. Either I want to eat more and kind of sabotage, or I want to go to the gym and or just punish myself in some way. What would you say, like what can that person say to themselves to just help reframe that moment, that real like that break, like that almost breaking point?
Yeah. So there's a few steps that I kind of like to follow in those times. And it kind of looks like, and it's the same as like if you're having a bad body image day, you can kind of use these steps. And so, firstly, it's like acknowledging the thought and saying, okay, I'm having this thought that I've stuffed up, or I'm feeling like really crappy about my body, or whatever it may be. And in that moment, really, again, being compassionate to yourself, knowing that these thoughts come up. We are bombarded by diet culture who's constantly telling us, that we shouldn't be eating this food or whatever it is. And so, yeah, it's really important if you feel like you've stuffed up, just to show yourself compassion. Think about, how you would respond to a loved one. So many times we speak to ourselves so harshly and so critically. And yeah, like we would never say these things to the people that we love or people that we care about. So
Yeah,
really
so
important in those moments, yeah, to really like acknowledge the thought and show ourselves compassion. No, we're not alone in that.
hmm
And then from there, it's you get to, I guess, a great step is then identifying maybe what the trigger may have been. So if it was a food that you ate, like, was it because you were labeling it bad, or because you're telling yourself it's not healthy? And or if it was like a bad body image kind of tough time, did you see a photo of yourself? And so, has that triggered some thoughts? So really identifying what the trigger was, so that can also help you in the future.
mm
And then it's then reframing that thought. So yeah, maybe it's, oh, I ate something that was like chocolate, for example, huge weakness for lots of people. So maybe you plan to only eat one piece of chocolate, and instead you've eaten 2 rows,
mm
and now you've like, oh, I've stuffed everything up. This is the worst. Like, I'm so bad. And all the guilt and the horrible thoughts come in. And though that's where you get to remind yourself, who decides on the rules of how much chocolate I can eat? Food
mm
has no moral value. Food is food. So there is no like good or bad. And like a lot of the time, that tiny, well, two rows, whatever it may be, is like such a small part of our whole eating for the whole week. And we
Yes.
zoom in on this and we make it such a big thing. And though when you zoom out, it's actually not such like a big deal if you've just done this one little bit. Though if you allow that to spiral, that's where then it goes into further binges, and like
Mm.
you just keep repeating the cycle. So it's really important, yeah, to just like reframe those thoughts. And again, if it's a body image thing, so if you've noticed the photo that you don't feel good in, then you get to say like, it's not my purpose, my life's purpose, to look good in every photo. And I know if you've ever taken like a beautiful, like you've seen a beautiful sunrise and you've taken a photo and then just like doesn't look as good, like you
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
capture.
Yeah.
And that's the same with us. It's okay. Like we have a lot of natural beauty, and those, not every photo is going to capture like the perfect angle and the perfect,
True.
complexion or whatever it is. Like that's
Mm.
okay. So yeah, it's really important then to reframe those thoughts however feels good for you. And like we talked about, I think being neutral about it is much more, well, is much easier for a lot of people than being like, oh, I love my body, and or like, because it can be really challenging to go from like criticizing yourself all the time to being like straight away positive. Like that's quite
Totally.
unrealistic. Um,
Totally.
so yeah, like if you can reframe your thoughts, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I ate the chocolate and oh well, I'm so great. I still love myself and I'm still really happy, because yeah, maybe you don't feel happy. And though you can say like, okay, I ate more chocolate than I wanted to. That's okay. Then, like, how can I support myself moving forward?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to mean anything about me. It doesn't change who I am that I ate more chocolate than what I wanted to. You just get to be quite neutral about it, and not let it then become a bigger thing that spirals into something else. Um, and then four, I think, is really then saying, okay, like, so I am upset at myself for eating too much chocolate, or I am upset by this photo that I saw. So how can I support myself in this moment? What can I do? What do I need? And whether it's like talking to a friend, whether it's going outside in the sunshine or going for a walk or dancing and having like doing something that's fun, anything. I mean, journaling, meditation, there are lots of different things that you can do to support yourself in that time. It's just
Mm.
what works for you, and yeah, you get to decide on that.
That's such great advice. Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah.
This was really, really awesome to speak to you. Can you tell me where can we find you and follow you and all of that?
So you can find me. I'm primarily on Instagram, so that's probably the best place to find me, at Ellen Tuzi Health.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm there creating reels and doing all the fun things and sharing my journey, and yeah, all the knowledge and experience that I have.
And do you coach people outside of Australia? Do you do international stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So people could get in touch with you there if they felt.
Yes, it's very easy to click on the link in my bio or send me a message. I'm open to all conversations. And yeah, I have people dropping into my DMs, whether or not they specifically want coaching or just like sometimes to just have a chat. And I'm also
Mm,
all about that too,
love
because I understand that, yeah, sometimes, like I said, this world, you can feel really quite alone and isolated, especially in this area of
that.
work. So yeah, I love to have chats and support women in that space.
Amazing. Thanks, Ellen. Thanks so much for being a guest. I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.